Without further ado, I will hand it over to our CASE project director, Simon Rolong. Simon is working with GIZ Thailand, and today he'll give you an introduction about clean, affordable, and secure energy in Southeast Asia program. Simon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kunpom. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining from all over Southeast Asia. Thank you also to the panelists and to the organizer of this wonderful media briefing. I'm very happy to see that there is a nice turnout, and I hope more will join. I think this is the first for us, but certainly not the last. So it's a perfect opportunity to start also establish a deeper relationship with all of you who play such an important role in strengthening the message around energy transition, climate change, sustainable development in the region. In a couple of minutes, my dear colleagues from CASE will share with you some insights that we have put together on how, at least from our perspective, Southeast Asia could address the development priorities while at the same time striving towards decarbonization of the energy sector. Before that, I'd like to provide a bit of context about who we are and why do we do this. So all the colleagues you'll hear, as well as myself, are working for a program called Clean, Affordable, and Secure Energy for Southeast Asia, or CASE. It is a program which is funded by the German government, more specifically the German Ministry for Environment, BMU, to support energy transition in Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. It is actually a very innovative and a very interesting program. Beyond the topic, we have a constellation stakeholder which is very unique to such a program. Usually, we have one lead implementer, could be GIZ, could be UN or others, and those actors are implementing a program jointly with a political partner. In our case, if I may say, we are one of the partners, but the core constellation of stakeholders is actually think tanks from Southeast Asia as well as Germany, and we are all co-implementing the program together. We are very proud of that setup, and I think it's an excellent platform to make the voices from the country heard, to do research that is addressing the actual needs, and to really support exchange of knowledge and expertise within the region as well. Our objective is contribute to create and to develop an evidence-based energy transition, which is aligned with sustainable development goals, but also with the climate change agenda, which, as you know, reached an important milestone last week with the Glasgow COP26. What that means effectively is that we are providing and putting together state-of-the-art research on what constitutes a sustainable energy transition and outlining the most feasible steps and recommendations useful for the government as well as society at large. We can't discuss what is best for each country and the power sector without providing the necessary data and fact, and this is the core approach of CASE. We are also sharing this research as widely and as targeted as possible in the 4 countries, in Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. This, of course, involves the Ministry of Energies, the utilities, but it also goes beyond that, because we know that the energy transition will have impact across all societies, all spectrum of societies. So having the voice of non-energy stakeholder, of civil society express on the topic is something essential for the future of the energy transition. We also aim to bridge the conversation and to include the stakeholders. And we want to do it in a transparent way so that everyone has access to this important information. As I said, communication and awareness raising and knowledge sharing is a key element of our program. And that's why this meeting today, the first media briefing about a knowledge product coming from a CASE, is especially important for us. And we hope we will have many more to engage in a sustainable dialogue also with you about this important objective. Having said that, we are very proud to share the insight into one of our publications, and we are also very excited to introduce our different speakers and key stakeholders of the CASE program today in our event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simone, for a brief introductions about our program and our publications. Now I would like to welcome Frauke Rose, a founding partner of New Climate Institute, who will be presenting the objective and framework of case knowledge products. Over to you, Frauke.
Yes, thank you, Pom, and good morning, good afternoon from Berlin. Yeah, I just wanted to give you a brief background to the report, the objectives, and how it was developed. So first of all, why did we decide to write this report? As you may know, the climate summit, the COP26 that concluded last weekend in Glasgow, was widely themed as the net zero COP. And before the climate conference, we saw and heard, and during the conference, many countries setting and announcing net zero or climate neutrality targets, that is committing not to decarbonizing the economies by 2050 or a bit later, in line with the goals of the Paris Agreement. And we now have over, I think it is over 130 countries that have set such targets, also many subnational governments, many cities, many businesses. And we wanted to explore and see a bit, what does this mean for Southeast Asia? What does it mean for the energy sector in the 4Ks partner countries? Starting from the premise, or building from the premise, that really ambitious climate policy and net zero and decarbonization or the energy transition can only really be effective and sustainable if it responds to and is fully integrated into development planning and national development objectives and goals. And we wanted to see, on the one hand, what are the trends that may generate public and political momentum and that can build support for the energy transition in the 4 countries, and then to identify enablers that can drive climate ambition on the one hand, but at the same time also sustainable development goals and resilience building to deal with the now sadly inevitable consequences of climate change. So we published this discussion paper last week. It was, as was said, it's a product or an outcome of intense collaboration between the consortium partners, building on the drawing from the strength and expertise of each. So as the international partners ourselves and the colleagues from Agora, we provided the international context, and the national think tanks, the very important and essential local and national expertise and knowledge. We also conducted a series of interviews with different experts in the 4 countries, covering different areas: energy, climate change, finance, etc., to really draw out kind of the national perspective, the national insights. The paper focuses around 6 what we call enablers or bridging concepts that we find relevant to Southeast Asia and its efforts towards net zero and the energy transition. And those are themes that we identified that may accelerate both climate ambition as well as driving an energy transition towards net zero economies on the one hand, but responding, as I said, to sustainable development goals. So what are the 6 concepts? One is looking into understanding synergies and trade-offs between climate and development policies, highlighting the interdependence of these 2 goals. The second one, or building on that, is more specifically looking into how development, adaptation, and resilience objectives can be leveraged to achieve mitigation. We look at finance and the important role of finance and international support and redirecting and unlocking capital. The important role of non-state actors and company leadership in driving change. And then more specific to the energy sector, the risks around fossil fuel lock-in, of course, an important topic. And then lastly, the opportunities around electrifying the economy and sector coupling. So for us, this media event is a really nice opportunity to discuss some of these concepts further and to engage in a conversation with all of you and the organizations that authored the paper. Thank you very much, and back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Frauke, for an introduction and the background of our publication. Now let's move forward to listening the country context. I will start with Indonesia by inviting Fabi Tumiwa, our executive directors from Institute for Essential Services Reforms, or IESR. Fabi will give you Indonesia's perspectives on our knowledge product topic, beyond cereals. Over to you, Fabi.
Thank you, Pong. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Indonesia, as you know, is our energy system is dominated by fossil fuels, and right now fossil fuel supply around more than 88% of our energy. It comprises of from coal, natural gas, and oil. Coal is dominant source for the energy sector for electricity. Around 65% of our electricity generated from coal-fired power plant, and but in total, fossil fuel supply around 86% of the electricity and only 40% of renewables. Besides rely on fossil fuels, the other issues that also very relevant to Indonesia is actually the issue of affordability of energy. So affordability related to the cost of energy is one of the key policies. So government intend to provide energy with the lower cost. So for years, Indonesia has provided subsidy to the consumers of energy. Around for electricity, the subsidy range in the last 5 years, the electricity subsidy around $4 to $5 billion annually, and the entire energy subsidy it's reached around $7 billion. That also included subsidy for LPG. So you can see that by providing subsidy to the system that dominated by fossil fuel, we actually stimulate consumptions of fossil energy, and I think that's one of the challenges to the energy transitions. There is a number of there is effort to reform the subsidy, in particular for the consumption in the last few years. But nevertheless, the attempt to reform this subsidy has made a very minimum impact, right? Because again, energy pricing is very much regulated, and in Indonesia case, energy price, electricity in particular, electricity price is has to be approved by the government, or has to be set by government and approved by the parliament. So it's not easy actually to increase the electricity price, and therefore it's hinder the energy transitions to clean energy. In addition to the subsidy to consumers, the government tends to make the electricity production slower by also providing kind of the subsidy in terms of domestic market obligation policy for coal. So in our domestic market obligations for coal, all coal providers has to allocate 25% of the coal productions to be sold domestically, mainly to the electricity company, with a cap price of $70 per ton. So no matter how high the coal cost right now is around between $180 to $200. Our utility only pay maximum $70 per ton. So we can see this is also one of the challenge for the energy transition, because with this policy, it's actually incentivized the utility to keep the coal plants in operations, because it give kind of artificially low cost in addition to the other subsidy, for instance, for the financings of the coal plants that provided by different countries, mainly Japan, Korea, and China through their public finance. So this is the Indonesian context and the challenge for energy transition. In terms of energy access, we currently 99% of our population has access to the electricity, but not of all of these populations has the same access quality. Indonesia is archipelagic countries, and consumers in the outer island, it means outside Java and Bali system, which is the most mature and advanced system in Indonesia, usually or could not enjoy electricity 24/7. Yeah, in the remote area, they even only only enjoy the access between 12 to 16 hours a day, and not always 7 days a week. So increasing the quality of energy access as manifested in the to meet SDG goal 7, it's also one of the key priority, I think, when we do energy transitions. And luckily in Indonesia context, those remote area is actually plenty with local renewable energy resources in terms of hydro, biomass, and solar mainly. Back to you, Pon.
Thank you, Fabi. And here is the Indonesia context. And please be reminded to all the journalists, if you have questions, you can submit your questions through Q&A box, or you can raise your hand, and then our team will unmute you and you can ask the question directly. And don't worry if you're not comfortable speaking English, you can submit your questions in your local language. We will have a translator to translate your questions through our speakers. Okay, now let's move from Indonesia to Thailand. I would like to welcome Dr. Kanika Thampanishawong, a Senior Research Fellow from Thailand Development Research Institute, or TDRI. I'll give the floor to you, Dr. Kanika.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see all of you today. I actually just a quick update from Thailand before we go to the key enabler for the energy transition in Thailand. Just to update you that during the COP26, our Prime Minister made the announcement that we're gonna achieve we aim to achieve the net zero greenhouse gas emission by the year 2065. And by the year 2050, we aim for the carbon neutrality. So to achieve this target, we do believe that the energy transition or the energy sector will play a very important role, like for us to achieve like this greenhouse gas emission reduction target. So like in the case of Thailand, like our team have like selected like 3 key enablers that we think like would be playing a big role in Thailand for us to achieve this net zero emission target. The first like enabler that we think would be very important was like recently we have seen that like around the world there has been a trend that many enterprises, many big corporations have making like a net zero emission reduction commitment. And also in Southeast Asia, we also witnessed that like a number of like businesses also like make announcement that they're gonna achieve like this net zero or carbon neutrality target as well. But we have seen that most of the announcement has been concentrated in like the multinational or the large corporations. So similar trend has been witnessed in Thailand as well. Like we recently have seen that many Thai enterprises, especially the big companies, has like coming out and they make announcement that they're going to achieve like either net zero emission or they want to achieve the carbon neutrality. And just to give you example, like most of the companies that I mentioned was like they are either on like the Dow Jones Sustainability Index list, or they are like among like the big corporation that are under the Thailand Carbon Neutral Network. So these are the big company like the PTT, which is a big oil and gas company, or the big other company also like joining similar trend as well. So however, like we have seen that like in addition to this big corporation, we do believe that the small and medium enterprise would also play a big role. But at the moment in Thailand, like if we look at the landscape, we have seen that the small and medium businesses or corporation, they still like doesn't have a clear move on this like net zero emission target yet. And we think that like one of the key barrier that like prevent them from doing so was like is the lack of access to finance. And also like in Thailand, like we have to admit like the consumer awareness on like the climate change or the greenhouse gas reduction has been concentrated by a certain consumer group. So this one like with the lack of like consumer awareness and the lack of like consumer concern to drive the corporate action, so we still see that like most of the effort in reducing greenhouse gas emission in Thailand has been concentrated among only the big corporation, but not among the small and medium enterprise. So this is the point that we think should be speeding up, and we think that like the business in Thailand, we should call on the government to create more like either the access to finance or creating more enabling environment for them to be able to achieve that business goal and remaining competitive. So this is like the first key enabler that we think would be important for Thailand. Second one, like we after like we seen that like we have been setting the target to reduce the greenhouse gas by 40% by the year 2030, and also like to achieve like this net zero emission by the year 2065. We believe that the international finance would also play a key role in Thailand as well, both to finance like the greenhouse gas mitigation projects and activities, and also like in the adaptation project as well. However, like if we look at the flow of international finance recently, we have seen that among the donors, like most of the donors, they fail to provide like predictable or steady level of resources that would be required to for the developing country like Thailand in order to drive this energy transition or to drive the adaptation in our country. And at the same time, like looking from the point of view of like Thailand or the Thai government, we also lack like a clear like long-term policy commitment. Like we do not have like yet like a systematic fiscal and structural reform necessary to attract this investment from the international investor and in arena. So just to look into a longer term, we think that what is needed for Thailand would be, we need to promote this to have long-term strategies and clear government goals, which this two part will play a big role in helping us in reducing uncertainty, and also help in attracting financing from abroad and international pool of resource. Last but not least, in Thailand, if you've seen the plan of the Thai government to achieve this net zero emission by the year 2065, the promotion of the use of electric vehicle will play a big role, and we aim to have around 69% share of electric vehicle for the new vehicle sales by the year 2035. However, having this sustainable transport shift is is a good thing and a good sign, but we want to emphasize that even though the electric vehicle is emitting zero to low pollution at the tailpipe, but the things that would play a big role is the electricity that is used to charge this electric vehicle. So we want to make sure that in Thailand, we want to promote the power sector, to switch to the use of the renewable energy as a fuel for producing electricity to charge the electric vehicle as well. So that in the long run, then when we transition to electric vehicle, then we have a truly sustainable mode of transport. So this is the key thing we would like to highlight for Thailand. Yes. Back to Khun Pong.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kanika, for very informative presentations. Now we already explored the Indonesia, Thailand, and next is going to be Vietnam and Philippines. Just to remind you that after Philippines, we will have the open discussions, and during the open discussion, you can ask the questions with our speakers. Now let's move to Vietnam. I'd like to invite Nguyen Ngo, an executive director from Vietnam Initiative for Energy Transitions, or VIET. Let's hear the perspective from Vietnam. Over to you, Nguyen.
Thank you. So thank you, and I'm happy to be here to share the information and support view from VIET to all of you. So Vietnam is already on the way of energy transition with an impressive start of the renewable energy development in the last 3 years, and with more than 20 gigawatts of solar, wind, and green power installed by the end of October this year. So we have more than 1/4 of total capacity. This makes Vietnam becomes a leading country in Southeast Asia in terms of the renewable energy development. So you all know that the Vietnam Prime Minister statement in COP26 opening day that Vietnam will implement a strong emission reduction measure with its own resource, emphasizing that Vietnam advantage of the renewable energy and international support in both finance and technology transfer to achieve net zero emission by 2050. So the statement has reaffirmed the country's determination to move toward the clean and sustainable future, as well as a contribution to the global effort in meeting climate goals as signed by in the Paris Agreement. So his statement also emphasized that being an economic, Vietnam has not started industrialization in the last 3 decades, and developing its economic to provide better life for all people is where Vietnam is also putting effort in why protect the global climate. So just before the COP26 on 1st of October, the Prime Minister have approved the National Green Goal strategy for 2021 to 2030 period with a vision to 2050. One of the principles that the strategy built up upon its green goal is a crucial means to implement sustainable development, contributing directly to reduce greenhouse gas emission toward a carbon neutral economy in the long term. The Prime Minister's statement that and the green growth strategy well demonstrate the importance of the achieving synergy between climate actions and socio-economic development, which is also presented as the first key message of our report. So achieving the net zero by 2050 is indeed as the ambitious target for Vietnam, given the country's context compared to other development countries that are aiming for the same goal. So it is clear that Vietnam cannot get there with the internal effort alone. So the Black Power Development number 8 version October in 2021 foresee the total capital investment of about 100 to 116 billion USD in 2021 and 2030 periods for the power source and transmission grid investment, and about 10.9 to 11.6 billion USD per year. So for comparison, the investment required per year is about 4% of the country's GDP in 2020. So given to the power mix in draft PDP8, still estimated that 270 million tons of the CO2 by 2030 is significant additional effort would be required to abate CO2 in power sector alone to be aligned with the net zero by 2050 target. Mitigation measures such as accelerating renewable energy grid and storage development, and improving the energy efficiency, demand side management, smart grid, all need finance resources to be realized. So for Vietnam to reach the target, international climate finance will be an important enabler. As the Prime Minister also addressed in his COP26 speech, it is important that the climate finance commitment have been made to be fully implemented and to have more ambitious climate finance targets for the upcoming periods. From the country perspective, Vietnam also needs to have clear regulation framework to enable the climate finance flow the efficiently utilizer for reaching the country's climate and socio-economic development goal. This will be allow Vietnam to contribute more to the climate protection while ensuring the just transition, sustainable development, and bring prosperity for all. So I would like to close my speech here and send back to Ron.
Okay, thank you, Nian. And now we have received some questions from the audience, but your questions will be answered during the open discussion. Now let's move quickly to Philippines. Let's welcome Red Constantino. Red is an executive director of Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities, or ICSC, in Philippines. And today he will share some thoughts about the Philippine context. The floor is yours, Red.
Thank you, Pam, and thanks everyone else for turning up in this media briefing. I don't want to get in the way of the questions from our press colleagues, so let me go straight to the point. I just have a couple of points to make. Number one, we can blame a lot of things when it comes to climate change, but something that is rarely discussed is the concept of time. And that is something that I think more and more of Southeast Asia needs to look at. Time in the sense that we have all been trained to look at a very short period or trained to just consider the next few years. In fact, we look at electoral cycles more or medium-term development plans that reach only up to 6 years or 8 years, sometimes even 3. And that is simply not going to be enough for us to look at the long term. That's also why we're discussing net zero, because the timelines in this context is about 2050 or thereabouts. And it's important to plan ahead, knowing that the climate has a different time frame than we do. What is history to humans is actually current affairs for nature. If we look back at the extreme weather events of the last decade, very few of us ever think that those extreme weather events that have visited the Philippines, that have also gone on to visit Vietnam, for instance, or other parts of Southeast Asia, are because of emissions that we failed to prevent 3 decades ago. And so everything we do now will matter in the long run, but also in the medium term. Second, in that sense, it's very important to think of net zero and decarbonization as one of the main goals that this region in particular needs to chase in order to contribute to the global good. However, Southeast Asia is a heterogeneous region. Every country in this region has a different political system, including the power sector is very much differentiated. So what might work for one country will not necessarily work for others. In this sense, for the Philippines, the most important changes that we need to see is going to be in the short and medium term, because the long term will require a lot of bolder decisions. And if we don't have strong public ownership of government plans that look at not only climate protection and climate mitigation, but also ensuring that the country's working population will be resilient and protected and will enjoy the benefits of a modern economy, it's hard to enter in a discussion of really very difficult decisions that we need to take in the long run. In this sense, it's important for the Philippines to achieve policy coherence in terms of what it needs to do in terms of the climate crisis. Resilience and adaptation remains the anchor of the Philippine challenge, and sustainable development will remain as its context. It's very important to see that much of the gains that we need to achieve in terms of climate benefits lie in achieving advances in terms of the welfare of our own people. We can decarbonize, in short, faster, not necessarily by pursuing net zero as the main strategy, but in terms of advancing really no regrets solutions that ultimately create benefits in terms of electricity, for instance, or in transport. One example that we often like to say, to show and to share is how we've managed to declare as the first country in Southeast Asia a moratorium on greenfield coal or new coal, which was declared last year in October 2020, not because of Paris Agreement compliance, not because of climate benefits, but because our power system needed stability and needs to chase modernization, transitioning towards flexible generation rather than counting emissions reductions per se. The moratorium on new coal also means that a lot of gigawatts of new coal will be avoided because our power sector needs to be stabilized in order to bring in more renewable energy into the grid. Right now, our electricity sector is dependent heavily on rigid, inflexible baseload generation technologies, in particular on coal. If we want more modernization and flexible generation, renewable energy will have to be increasing at scale exponentially in the grid, so that our people, our islands actually benefit from this transition sooner. Like Indonesia, we are also an archipelago, and it's far more efficient and far more beneficial to actually have to produce energy where it's actually needed. And in this sense, the most modular and flexible generation technologies are in renewables, and in a few years, storage will also be at the most cost-effective level as well. So in short, the more we pursue affordable, reliable, and energy secure modern power sector, the easier we can begin to speed up our decarbonization process as a co-benefit. The same can be said of our transportation sector, where mobility is not going to rest in the short and medium term in terms of converting our vehicles to electric vehicles per se, whether it's in cars or in SUVs and so on. The fact is, the same holds the rest of the country. 88% do not own their own cars. And if we simply translate and transform our current internal combustion engine vehicles into electric, we're actually only serving the needs of 12% of households in the entire country. This is why the mobility revolution is actually underway in the country, just like in electricity, in terms of active mobility or non-motorized transport. Cycling lanes have been coming up interconnected across the entire country, not just in Metro Manila. Our last count conservatively is we probably have anywhere from 500,000 to probably 2 million cycling commuters in the country today. Those are all cyclists that we should count as one less car, or maybe 500,000 up to 2 million less cars on the road, which needs to take place with the transformation of our power sector as well. Decarbonization will come as a co-benefit, but it needs to make sense to our working people so that they can support the transformation that will be more difficult in the near future. I'll stop there, Pom. Back to you.
Thank you, Red, for sharing a very interesting pointers. Now it's time for open discussion and Q&A. And in this regards, I'd like to ask all our panelists to have your cameras on. And if any of you, for the audience, if you have questions you would like to ask our panelists, just feel free to send your questions to Q&A box, whether in English or in your local language. So that other participants can understand as well if you do it in English. Now I would like to pass the floor to Simon to moderate the discussions.
Thank you, Pom. Thank you, guys, colleague from the different countries for sharing your insight. So yes, Pom said, please use the Q&A to ask your question in whatever language. If you also would like to ask your question orally, raise your hand, and we will arrange the mic to you. I'm actually proposing to kickstart the discussion with the way Red ended it. So I think in his introduction, he very strongly linked the topic of net zero and sustainable development. And I think from the title of the Beyond Net Zero, that's a message that we really wanted to pass across. So I would actually like to maybe ask from the other countries a bit their perspective on that question. What does it mean in your country, the Beyond Net Zero? Why is it important to link the net zero topic to the sustainable discussion? And maybe I will ask Dr. Kanika to start.
Hi, yes, I think in Thailand, normally if we would like to push only on the climate change or the greenhouse gas reduction policy as such, as a standalone policy, it is very difficult to get a very strong political support. So in other words, as you mentioned earlier, it is very important that we should try to establish a linkage between net zero emission target as well, and link it to other dimension of sustainable development as well as the economic perspective as well. As if we can create and make sure that we can receive some co-benefit, for example, you can also achieve emission reduction target, and at the same time you can stimulate the GDP growth and like enhance like or create more job and so on. So in this way, it would be very easy to like get some support from like the Thai government, like for them to buy in, like for us to not only achieve the net zero that General Prayut has been announcing, but also like going beyond net zero in that sense. Yeah. So this is like the perspective from me from Thailand. Yeah.
Thank you, Kanika. Nguyen, what do you think about that question? Is it mostly a political message? Is it for awareness raising about climate change that we talk about net zero and economic development, or is it also something bigger in terms of structural change in the country as well? You're muted, Nguyen. Sorry.
Thank you for the question. As I know from our point of view, then we see the beyond net zero is not just only the focus on reduce the carbon emission, but it also like we reduce the carbon emission, but the country still can develop the economies and in the sustainable and reliable. That is the main point of view from a think tank like it.
Yeah. Okay. Fabi, I think it's I maybe for Indonesia, for giants from the south, we'll phrase a little bit the question differently. There will be trade-off in the energy transition. I think it's something which is accepted when we talk about the energy transition in terms of job losses, in terms of job gain, and so on. And I would like to have your insight on this. So how do we perceive those trade-offs, and how can we make it easier? How can we ensure support a just energy transition in terms of sustainable economic development, in particular for those who will be impacted the worst by this change?
Yes, thank you, Simon. As you know that Indonesia is fossil fuel producing countries. We produce around more than 600 million tons of coal, and 80% we export to the neighbor country, but mainly to 60% of it to China and India. So we fuel the climate change in those countries, actually, including to Vietnam and to Philippines. Yeah, so it's very important when we look at the impact of global energy transition, especially energy transition, as Brad mentioned. For instance, when the Philippines canceled new coal-fired power plant, and we are very excited to hear the Prime Minister of Vietnam announce net zero emission by 2060. It means that Vietnam also will soon will reduce coal-fired power plant, and it has some implication to Indonesia coal export. What does it mean? It's very important, I think, because if you look at this situation, coal is contribute around 4% of our annual around 3 to 4% of annual revenue, national revenue. But in some provinces, I think in the 4 provinces that produce 80% of coal in Indonesia, revenue from coal contributed from 15 to 30% of their annual revenue. It is engine of growth. I think the coal revenue, the coal industry is engine of growth. So when we expect that 10 years from now, the demand and export from coal, and also as our Indonesian government has planned to retire coal early, so it means that the coal productions in the near future can be reduced from current level. It means that the local economy will be impacted. So it's not really, maybe at the national level, it's not really a big in terms of impact, but at the local level, it will be a very, very big. So it means that those provinces must carry out economic transformation. They have to find a new source of revenue, new industries that generate jobs that can absorb the job from coal industries, and even they have to find any a new industry that create economic wide development in those provinces, right? So it's not easy. It's not easy task. So I think that's something that that cling into the energy transition discussion in Indonesia, not about just simply leave coal, but what we have to do in order to make sure there's a just transitions and mitigate the risk of adding more poverty into this region, which is currently poor already.
Yeah. Actually, maybe a few more words on that, and that will allow us to answer the question of a journalist, which is the question of the foreign currency. I mean, we know the reserve of change of Indonesia. There is basically a massive input, as you mentioned, when it comes to coal exports. Do you think, and the question is very straightforward, do you think renewable energy development can actually compensate that for Indonesia?
Can you repeat your question? I lost the first, I think the few minutes at the first of your questions.
Sorry. So I just following up on what you just said. There was a specific question on foreign exchange and basically the foreign revenues Indonesia is getting from selling coal abroad. And the question is very straightforward: do you think renewable energy development can replace this? The equivalent of 610 million ton of coal export. How can renewable energy replace that for Indonesia?
Yes, I think right now it won't. Yeah, if we look at the number of revenues from exporting coal, renewable energy will not simply replace that. But the more importance that we have to find, I think, is not about the revenues, right? I mean, revenue it has to build along with the renewable energy industry in the country. For instance, right now we are discussing how Indonesia can produce hydrogens and ammonia actually from renewable energy resources. And then we can use that hydrogen and ammonia for our domestic use, and remaining could be export. And this product is actually can be replaced, but we have to build that industry now. Yeah, we don't have that industries. Other also that we see potential is not about revenue coming from selling green electricity to the neighbor country. Last month, I think Singapore announced that they will import, I think, around 25% of their electricity capacity, around 4 gigawatt from overseas, right? And I think Indonesia is in very strategic places, and we know that right now at least of 3 or 4 projects currently on pilot to generate electricity and to sell that electricity to Singapore in the form of green electricity. So it is in the future that green electricity actually can be source of revenue to replace the coal. So it is actually better. So while we are developing this project, we can actually develop the industry that would support this project in the near future in terms of a solar PV and as well as battery storage, which is very relevant to the future need.
Okay, Fabi, thank you so much for that. I would like to pass maybe to the Philippines and to Red. Two particular points I read for you. You're talking about the no regret policy. I'll be curious if you could give us a bit more information on what you mean by that. And maybe as a follow-up, you also talk about the moratorium, which, as you say, has made a big was a big announcement that everyone looked with with a lot of curiosity and interest. Can you tell us a bit more, like what kind of shockwave has it created at different level in the power system, in the also among energy practitioners such as yourself? What kind of impulse does that create, especially now that we look at all this discussion around coal phase out?
Thanks, Simon. I'll answer that by also consolidating the answers of my other colleagues, by saying in particular why the knowledge product that we launched last week is very important. This is why our colleagues among the journalists, we'd like to remind them that this product is critical, because we're not saying that there will not be any pain. There will be trade-offs. But there will be trade-offs also means by saying that there will be benefits as well. We need to understand what we lose, but we also need to understand that we will gain more. And so those are difficult decisions that our decision makers need to take, and it will not be easy. That is also why I think CASE is important, because what CASE is saying is that no single country will be able to do this on our own. We need Indonesia to move forward as well. And we need to advance just as Vietnam and Thailand are advancing also, because this is all really closely interlinked. As you had noted earlier, the goal is not going to be easy. We are, climate change is acknowledged by all our governments as the biggest challenge that we've ever faced, the world has ever faced. But they will also be the first to say that it is not jobs. You have different livelihoods that you need to stimulate as well. And in this sense, we need to address all of it together. The moratorium sent shockwaves, maybe not shockwaves, but sent the right signal, because we're saying there is more to the decarbonization than just the energy transition. But the energy transition needs to move faster as well. Everything needs to fit. We cannot simply chase greenhouse gas reductions because we have other development challenges we're facing. Most importantly, the fact that we are living in a world where the historically responsible countries are not pulling their own weight also. I mean, if you look at the Philippines only, our per capita emissions are tiny. Or look at it in reverse. The per capita emissions of the US is 15 times greater than the Philippines. Australia, almost the same. Japan, 8 times. Germany, 8 times as well. If those countries pledged to go net zero before 2040, it's easier to persuade our governments to chase decarbonization by 2050. And that happens, we need to make sure the population supporting only that as the main strategy. I end with just saying a reminder of acupuncture. In acupuncture, you do not stick the needle where it hurts. You stick it somewhere else. And this is our challenge today. Stimulate the right outcome, but not necessarily by pressing on the wound. Back to you, Simon.
Thank you. I love that comparison, and I want to emphasize to everyone that actually this is one of the key work of CASE, as Red mentioned it, working also on understanding the co-benefits, and we hope maybe one of our next media briefing will be specifically on that topic. I'd like to now bring a question directly from the media to Kanika and then to Nguyen, because your countries have come out with big statement and big commitment in COP26. How do you concretely, straightforwardly, how do you think this announcement are actually going to drive or not the energy transition in, first of all, Thailand and then in Vietnam? Kanika.
Yeah, actually, just to be honest, I think that this announcement also come as a big shock for us as well, because before the COP26, we were still talking about carbon neutrality. But anyway, like given that this announcement has been made about the net zero emission by 2065, I think this one will send it is a good signal actually, and it's like supporting like towards like this. It is important that like now it's a must that Thailand needs to do something in the energy sector in particular, because like in our country, it is like the sector that emit the most of the greenhouse gas emission. And in this way, I think it is a high time for us as a case project, and also like for the renewable energy transition in general, like that now the Thai government would provide or maybe send like more like support towards like this issue of energy transition, like after the Prime Minister come back from Glasgow. I think like I think now like different parties now we were talking that like we need to brainstorm about the pathway or the measures that we need in order to achieve like this target that has been made at the international stage. Back to you, Simon.
You translate a lot my own thinking. Thank you, Kanika. And Nien, I'll be curious. I mean, Vietnam was also like a lot of eyes were turned on Vietnam. There was a very strong statement as well. How do you think this will drive the hopefully progress, but even if you think it's not very impactful, please tell us why in Vietnam.
Yeah, from our point of view, we can see that the statement from the Prime Minister is very, I mean, it's strong, and of course, it's make us surprised as well, because before the Prime Minister, before the COP26, then our we also working on the scenario to reduce CO2 emission for the power sector in Vietnam. And we try to bring up our scenario to the people who work as a policy maker in Vietnam, but it was received very carefully. Even we said that the CO2 emission that the power sector in Vietnam can reduce up to 50%, but people are still very carefully when they listen to us. But once the Prime Minister come back from the Glasgow, then we see the move is very quick. So actually the power development plan number 8 was almost done and submitted to the Prime Minister, but not yet approved. But once the Prime Minister come back from the Glasgow, then they can send back the PPH to the Ministry of Interchange to rework on that, and to revise and to find a solution, and to see to update according to the commitment that the Prime Minister already stated in the COP26. So I can see this is a big movement, and I really hope that by doing the revised PPH, then Vietnam will have a big view on the energy transition, at least because in the past it wasn't counted the electricity demand from the transportation and industries. But we know that the energy transition is not just only inside the power sector, it's also increase the demand from the other sector. So we need to count it into the power development plan. So I hope the new version, people will pay attention to the energy transition, not just only in the power sector, but it's also in the industry sector, in the transportation sector, and construction, urban development as well. So we also spend some time to work on the long-term energy transition for Vietnam, and we are kind of very positive after we got the statement from the Prime Minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Nien. So to everyone, I mean, we have quite a few questions left. Normally we should end, but I think if you agree, we'll stay on and keep answering the question. Hopefully our panelists will be available a little while longer, because I think it's very important that we engage also in that discussion. And actually, I have a couple of specific questions for Fabi, but before that, I want to have maybe a round of the 3 other countries on this one specific question, which I think is very interesting, especially coming from the media, is how do the government or not contribute to building the propaganda around the energy transition? So are they actually supporting this awareness raising, or is it yeah, what is your position on that? Because we know awareness raising, I mean, all of you shared that message, will be essential to build that question and ensure ownership from the population. Do they play this role? Do they have a role to play in that direction? Maybe we'll start with Red, please.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. The government is quite clear about the climate crisis, especially this administration. But that is also not necessarily saying that everything is going well, because the biggest challenge right now is coherence. There is so much fragmentation across sectors because of the over-specialization in silos that are preventing, but also in terms of modernizing the economy. By modernization, I mean a faster means of transitioning everything. We're not just going to have to upgrade the electricity sector. We need to upgrade everything else: supply chains, food supply, urban services, logistics, the energy sector for sure, infrastructure. Those all need to come together. They need to be seen as an opportunity to pump prime the economy, because when you upgrade everything, you need to throw public money at it. It will send the right signal to investors, and that's what coherence will ultimately bring. It is why I'm confident that decarbonization will be faster achieved if there's actually more coherence early, and if we're chasing the right kind of development goals. The long run will require more difficult decisions, maybe even far different than what we're contemplating in this call. But it's not going to be achieved if the public is not fully supportive of our governments. That's also the challenge that CASE has taken up. And I think we're in a good place right now with our partners in Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia, working hand in hand with our colleagues in New Climate Institute, Agora, and GIZ.
Thank you, Red. I'd like to, Kanika, you mentioned specifically earlier the lack of understanding in the population. How can the government help with that? Does the government help with that? Is there any clear message coming from the government of Thailand in line also with this new target and objective?
Actually, I would say that if you wait around 1 or 2 months after this, we might see a clearer message from the government after they have all the ministry have been adjusted for the announcement that the Prime Minister had made at Glasgow. But at the moment, I think we haven't yet see a clear announcement or clear signal from the government yet, whether and whether they're gonna support, how they're gonna support the energy transition, and how they're gonna use this energy transition as a key measure to achieve this ambitious climate target. So I think from now until, I don't know, very soon they have to come up with some clearer announcement to the public, both to educate the public how important it is that we need to make such ambitious climate commitment, and also after we already made a commitment, how do we gonna deliver this commitment using the Thailand way of and the strategy. Yeah, I think at the moment we haven't yet see the announcement, but from what I heard, I think different related government agency now, they need to prepare about they need to adjust the strategy that they have at their hands to make it more ambitious compared to the one that we have seen in the long-term low carbon development strategies. Yeah.
Thank you, Kanika. I will actually now switch because unfortunately Fabi may have to leave soon. I have 2 questions for you, Fabi. The first one is solar energy. We know the potential of Indonesia, like the rest of the region. I think this probably applies to all the countries actually, is very high, but most of the solar panel, and I assume a lot of the other equipment, are imported. from other countries. They would like to have your thought about this. And the second question, which I may as well share, and I think that also applies to other countries, in particular Thailand, is what is the role of bioenergy in the energy transition? We know it's a controversial topic, in particular in Indonesia. So how can it be massively developed in the context of the energy transition? And I will ask you to remain quite brief, please, if it's possible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Simon. Yes, indeed, for the solar energy, we import most of the panels. We are very, our solar industry is very infant. Right now, we manufacture solar panel with the annual capacities, combined annual capacity around 500 to 600 megawatt. But to support energy transition, we need more than that. And I think that's most of the solar panel. The solar cell we still have to import. We don't have solar cell in industries. But beyond that, I think I do agree that Indonesia should develop the integrated solar in industries. We have the materials, we have the feedstock, and I think it's about I can compare that when Indonesian government start to realize that electric vehicle is the future, and battery is one of the important components, and the government issue regulations. Within 2 years, we can establish the Indonesia battery company, right? So it's just established with a target for the first production in 2024. It will support the entire ecosystem of electric vehicle. So I think that kind of political decision is required if Indonesia government then willing to develop solar integrated solar industry in the country. We have seen that Vietnam has been successful in that. Malaysia also, they produce ingot, they produce a solar cell and model not only for their domestic need but also for export. So I think we can copy the successful of Vietnam and Malaysia, and I think that would be the interest of government as well. For the biomass, it's very interesting question. We have utilized biomass, at least right now. Biofuel is one of the big program. There is a controversial issue because the use of palm oil, right, and it relation with the climate change. Yeah, but Indonesia is also one of the largest producer of crude palm oils, the largest palm oil plantation in the world. Yeah. But in terms of for power, actually, we just published a paper last month that indicated that actually biomass power in Indonesia could reach like 30 gigawatt, and the feedstock mainly come from agricultural residues. Yeah, so empty fruit bunches, kernels, coffees, rice husks, and others. So it can be developed, but I think with it still require kind of develop of an energy plantation like acacia, which I think with a very strong sustainability component in that. But if you are interested, I suggest that you go to the ISR website and look at this paper. And it's not just biomass, bioenergy, but also other renewable energy, the wind and solar. We have done the complete analysis of renewable energy potentials in the country.
Thank you, Fabi. That's super interesting. And yes, of course, please, journalist friends, go check ISR website, go check that publication. I think the topic of bioenergy is especially interesting to that region and all the challenges it brings in. Maybe I will follow up. There's a question to all of you as well. And I mean, of course, Fabi, if you need to go, you can fade out. Don't worry, we'll be offended. It's how supportive is the climate, the economic climate for renewable energy business in Southeast Asia? And that person actually mentioned for example, the role of educational system and curriculum development and so on. Are the people already from a young age geared also towards the energy transition? And so climate and education aspect, and maybe we can start with Nguyen in Vietnam.
Yes, thank you. So actually in Vietnam, we can see that in the last 10 years, there are several programs that provide like capacity building, not just only for the policymaker, but also for the community and for the like a young people. So I think in the future, the capacity building awareness for the energy transition is still need to be continuous, and especially for the group of the people who are working in the energy sector, they need to have more information about the technical solution that support for the future of the energy transition. In another point of view, I also can see the young generation, they also need to have information that guide them to the green job. Green job here is not just only like about the energy sector, but it's also about the other job. But we view it in the green eyes and green way, how to pursue the work in the efficient use of the energy and reduce of the CO2 emission. So it needs to have a wide range of the information to all the people to access the new information, new technology, and also have a new mindset to continue implement a solution that can reduce the CO2 emission. Back to you.
Thank you, Nguyen. Kanika, I'd like to ask you the same question. Business climate for renewables, favorable, not favorable in Thailand, and education. What is Thailand actually investing in this long-term perspective of skilling people towards energy transition matters?
Actually, I can attend to like the education part. Like I think like at the moment, like most of the curriculum in Thailand, like that has been like educating the young generation, it has been focusing mainly on energy efficiency, more on that part. But the part on the energy transition or the things on renewable energy, it's still quite limited. So I think in this part, I think we need to the Thai government has to take further action to groom the children about like these issues, like right from like very young age. But we have seen like a better momentum at the university or higher education level, that like we have seen more courses or more curriculum focusing on renewable energy or on the energy transition. So this is like a good sign. But starting from a young age, like from primary school, I think we need to start like people like from that very young level. So this is like the progress in Thailand right now.
Kanika, I know I'm pushing it, but there's one more question here for Thailand. Can I ask you like your take in a few minutes? I know you are in a hurry.
Yeah.
How to make EV? I mean, Thailand has huge objective when it comes to EVs. It's also a major automobile car producer now. Could you tell us how to make people use EV? Do you have any thinking about that? And a more coincidental question, do you know if there will be special lane for e-bikes?
I don't think so, but I mean like for
what
the
lanes?
EV, for the EV to stimulate the consumer to use EV. I think we used to have like one project working on like surveying the customer demand for the electric vehicle. And I think like apart from the price that need to come down like quite substantially, and also like the cost of the battery, the very important thing is like the, how to say, like the coverage of the charging station in Thailand. I think now we don't see like apart from in Bangkok, right? Like if you go outside of the
Yeah, of course.
of Bangkok, like if it is quite difficult to find a charging station, then it would be a big barrier for the Thai consumer to switch to EV. And the other one was like if you are using the battery EV, like the battery electric vehicle, now the time you use to charge, like for it to come to full charging. So if the length is too high, like it's too, you have to wait too long, then it would be like difficult to convince the ICE like user to converge to EV. So I think those are like the key points that like the Thai government need to speed up. Like if they want to like ensure that the target for the 2035 of like having 69% EV as a market share for the new vehicle, then that would be too ambitious if they don't like start like changing the infrastructure like right now. Yeah.
Maybe a strong incentive would actually be to give lines to the EVs that will be a direct incentive for people to actually switch, lowering the transport, the traffic jam in Bangkok.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Kanika. I think we will end soon, but I have one more question, actually the same question as I asked earlier that I would like to read. Can you give us, from your perspective, a little bit, how is the renewable energy business climate for actually the business now in the Philippines? And what do you think young educational, education can play, what role can it play to actually boost the energy transition in the Philippines?
Thanks for the question, Simon. Let me answer very quickly. Things are not going very well in the Philippines, which is actually another source of my optimism, strangely, because the fixes that we need to see in place are actually based on getting the right competition policies in, which is very human. It's not about the ability to install. It's about really simple challenges that we need to overcome and can be overcome quite quickly. For instance, we need to add 9 gigawatts of flexible generation, largely solar, for instance, in our grid. The 9 gigawatts probably will be ready quite quickly because the companies here are ready to do so. But it's the banking sector that remains behaving like a pawn shop. That is the problem. So you need the right incentives there so that they start lending, because those companies that are ready to install at the capacity that we need are ready but require financing. These are fixable, and that's giving me a sense of optimism beyond the frustration many are seeing. I think we will turn the corner, and once we do, it will move very, very fast, hopefully alongside our other colleagues in Southeast Asia. That's why CASE is important.
Simon, you can't hear you speaking.
All right. I think that's the last question has been answered. And well, thank you for all participants and our panelists today. We have a very insightful and interesting discussion today. And unfortunately, our time today is up. And before we leave, I would like to, if you want to know more about our projects and publications, you can go to follow us on our social media channels. We have Facebook, you can search CASE for SEA, or you can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and our website, case4sea.org, or you can just search our hashtag case4sea. For our publications, you can download our publication by going to our website. Sorry. Here, this is our publications. You can just scan the QR code here to download the publications, or you can just go to our website. All right. Now I think we have to end the session, and thank you very much for your participations. And we will send the press release to you right away after this event. And if you have any questions regarding our knowledge product, please feel free to contact me, which I will give the contact in the press release. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.